training camp for the Texans is going to be popping because they've got a lot of good players, including several who could be first-time Pro Bowlers. So you and I went through this yesterday, this article, this Cody Benjamin article. The one question in the Cody Benjamin article was 20 possible first-time Pro Bowlers around the NFL, and there were 2 Texans on the list. Nico Collins, who I think got a good sporting chance, although I don't know if his numbers are going to exceed last year's, just given the number of mouths to feed on offense. And Azeez Al-Shaair, which I think that's a fun one. That I think he, if this defense improves and he's viewed as the leader of the defense, and if the team's really good, he's got a shot as well. He's going to put up huge tackle numbers. But the one question we didn't ask, Seth, is who are the other guys right now that we feel like have a shot at making the Pro Bowl for the first time? If you had to pick one, aside from Nico and Al-Shaair, because Cody Benjamin already picked them, who would you pick as a Texan who hasn't made it yet, who you think makes it this year?
I would say, so as a first-team Pro Bowler, right? We're not counting,
first-time Pro Bowler.
No, but first team also. Like, are you just saying, or just makes the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, makes the Pro Bowl. Yeah.
Even as a second team, or Tank
yeah, sure,
Dell?
Makes the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, Tank Dell would be the one.
Tank Dell would be yours, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no, I'm sorry, I'm just like makes the Pro Bowl, but not like as an alternate that replaces somebody else.
Yeah. Gets selected.
Actually gets named to the Pro Bowl. Yeah, Tank Dell. I think because of the highlight factor, because of the the chance for production he's going to have, it doesn't. Like in terms of total yardage and everything, it all just depends on who gets targeted when this year. There's so many good wide receiving options, but like Tank Dell is already the guy that I see people in the national media trying to look like they're ahead of the curve and saying, "Watch for Tank Dell." I think there's a sweet spot right now in June and July when I've noticed these various national accounts saying like, "Hey, you heard it here first. Tank Dell is really good."
Yeah.
And because the Texans didn't get a whole lot of it last year. They might have seen Tank Dell highlights here or there, but they weren't on national games and the way they will be this year. So I think there's a really good chance, especially too, because Tank Dell has, aside from the highlight reel potential, he has the underdog potential in that he's tiny, and people love an underdog like that. Even other wide receivers in the league or other defensive backs in the league can look at Tank Dell and be like, "Oh man, that's different than me. Nothing to get jealous of over there." Yeah, that guy's incredible. Can you see what he's doing at that height and weight?
Yeah, I mean, I've said for the last couple of weeks, I think Tank leads this team in receiving yards this year. So I'm count me as one of those ones that's planting the flag in some hot Tank Dell takes early here.
Why is it? Why? Okay, so I kind of just flat out I feel like it's. I just don't care about who gets more receiving yards because a lot of it that really is, in my mind, it's going to come down to just how a few different games play out because you've got 3 very good, viable wide receiver options. Yeah. So, why do you think Tank Dell will be the leader?
Well, I'll tell you. The reason it may matter more to me than it does to you, like who leads, is because A, I play fantasy football, number one, and 2, I gamble. So I think Tank Dell over on receiving yards for the season is a really good bet. I think one. We saw before he got hurt last year that he was having every bit as good a season, if not ascending better than Nico was there.
Yeah.
I think the chemistry CJ's got tremendous chemistry with Tank. You could see that. And I just think if this is going to be an offense where there's all kinds of empty space and guys running free, and I think Diggs, at least early on, Diggs and Nico are going to be getting more attention maybe than Tank. If teams are picking their poison early in the season, that's the poison they're picking.
Yeah.
Those are the reasons. I mean, it's a guess. I get that. But if I'm making it an educated guess, those are the reasons why.
I guess I would go with Nico just because of everything you just said.
Yeah.
I think that the teams, if things are going as planned for the Texans offense, teams will be playing extreme soft coverages, just trying to keep things from going over the top. Mm-hmm. And Nico, as much as people would assume that, Tank is a slot type guy, he's not. Nico over the middle has just been lethal. So I think that extra room for him to run is going to end up probably being more churning out of yardage, not necessarily as many magnificently long passes, but more just steady as she goes up the middle, him breaking tackles.
Do you think this is a thing where, and this is a fantasy football angle on this, and I'm with you on Tank making the Pro Bowl. I think he's a great pick for this question. Do you think this is going to be one of those things where the guys are consistently getting their 70 or 80 yards each every game, or are there going to be games Do you think this is more like, okay, this is a Nico game. Okay, this is a Tank game. Okay, this is a Diggs game, that kind of thing?
I think there's the potential that it's just going to be based on who gets the long breakout reception in any given game.
Yeah,
so, yeah, like, I don't know. As far as I don't think that one guy is going to be targeted more heavily than the other necessarily, just because like CJ's advanced past that point of relying on a crutch. He almost, he had the benefit of not necessarily having a DeAndre Hopkins or like a veteran wide receiver that was your absolute number one go-to.
Mm-hmm.
So from the very beginning, he had to learn how to spread it around.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool that Nico and Tank grew with him in that. But I think that just by circumstance alone, and that also is a credit to CJ, obviously, I think that he's more advanced in that regard than Deshaun was early on, because Deshaun had that security blanket of, even when Will Fuller was there, it was just DeAndre was the guy that was just so easy to hang on and don't come off the first read. He's open even when he's not open.
Yeah.
CJ didn't quite have that last year, and I think in the long term that's to his benefit.
I think the other names in this conversation, and we're talking about what Texans, aside from Nico Collins and Aziz Al-Shire, who were mentioned in Cody Benjamin's CBS article, who are the other Texans in the mix to make the Pro Bowl for the first time? I think Stingley would be my pick. Tank is a great pick. Stingley would be mine. I think with Stingley, you're just betting on health, which is that's dicey. I get that. But I think I know, if Stingley's playing, I count on him to play at a really elite level. I guess throw the names at you here, Seth. How do you feel about Stingley? How do you feel about Petrie? I throw Dalton
Petrie.
Schultz in there, maybe. I don't know.
Petrie he's got a little bit of, because remember, the Pro Bowl is half popularity contest, half actual judgment of skill.
Yep.
I think that Petrie does have the benefit of having kind of made a splash a couple years ago. I don't know how national that was, other than a lot of people had pointed out that, his tackle numbers and whatnot. I'm confident that Petrie's going to be a better player this year. Yeah. I think a lot. When I went back and looked at some of his more glaringly bad plays last year, they were really more about mental errors and or just having a little bit of too aggressive, not knowing when to have an aggressive mindset versus knowing when to be passive or at least be more cautious. And I'm hoping, because he's such a bright kid, that he figures that part of it out and that he's a different guy this year. But he's not at that same level athletically as some of the true marquee safeties in the league. Yeah. So he's got a shot at it, but I wouldn't put him in the favorite. Stingley I'm nervous about just because of injuries. But, yeah, if he's healthy, I think there's he's a guy that a lot of cornerbacks themselves are talking about right now. Guys that are in the league right now have pointed out how good Stingley's been.
Schultz would be a nice dark horse for me, but the problem with Schultz is, again, like a lot of these guys on this offense, okay, does he get his 60 catches, that he had last year? Now that Diggs is here, and if they run the football better, CJ's not going to be throwing it 40 times a game. He's going to be throwing it probably more like 30 times a game. Plus, there's this little issue of Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews existing in the AFC as well. So there's tough sledding competition-wise there.
It is the tight ends are heavily weighted towards the NFC at least, including, my God, I forgot, Taysom Hill is a tight end now, of course. But I guess the other guy, David Njoku, I guess, would be another potential threat. But it's not like it's a packed class after Kelce. So if Kelce falls off or what have you.
Yeah, maybe Dalton Schultz. Text message. Middle Screen saying it was his son's first ball game. Oh, good for you, Middle Screen. They went to the White Sox-Astros game yesterday. Patio level right field until the second inning. Got a pic of my son with Rinel Blanco and Framber Valdez. Oh, Middle Screen lives in Chicago. Okay, there you go.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
I thought he taught in Missouri City or something. Okay.
Yeah. I knew he was out of town. I just assumed he was West Coast because that's where he went to school out there.
I first met Middle Screen when I was sitting at a coffee shop in Rice Village. This big dude walks up to me, says, "Are you Seth Payne?" And he was a track and field athlete, a thrower. He was a discus thrower at UCLA. Right? Middle Screen? I always screw up. I believe it was UCLA.
Screen,
He's a big dude, though. Yeah. So I've enjoyed him since then. Once you realize that, well, he used to be more of a BS artist on Twitter. I don't think he is as much anymore. You had to get over that hump and realize, like, okay, sometimes he's just I blocked him twice before I met him in person.
Yeah.
And he explained himself. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Yep.
I get it now.
You're just being sarcastic, middle screen. We
Yeah.
got you. You covered who you think would lead in yards. Who do you think leads the team in receiving touchdowns? Who's the biggest red zone threat? I think it might be Tank also. I think my Tank proved that he could score from anywhere on the field in this offense. Remember, I mean, he was getting some little some little bubble screens there inside the 20-yard line.
If you're going to use him on the goal line a lot, though, Sean, you can't just always have him be a guy who doesn't block people. And I know how people feel about Tank blocking people down on the goal line.
I'll use a lead blocker down near the goal line. I still
submit to you that was not his. I think Nico maybe was supposed to work up to the guy that Tank eventually went to block, but Tank was looking for action, as he tends to do. Or action finds him sometimes, unfortunately. But action found him that day.
Tank was working the Chick-fil-A in Rosenberg yesterday. I don't know if you saw the pictures from that. He was working.
These rookie minimums are pretty high these days. Is that his off-season internship?
You know what else is high? They, for a fast food gig, they pay pretty well at Chick-fil-A too. You know, maybe that's his side hustle.
They do. You know, to be a GM at Chick-fil-A, it can be very lucrative. But A, obviously you're going to work your butt off because you're in food service. But B, they accept they have a GM program where you're like an owner-operator, but they accept like some absurdly low number of people because a lot of people apply, and it's like 1 out of thousands that actually make it.
It's the same thing to get a Chick-fil-A franchise in the first place is like that.
Well, that is what I'm talking about.
Oh, the GM?
Like
yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you meant like the manager of the restaurant there.
Well, the manager is like an owner-manager.
Yeah.
Like they have like a setup where it's you can't just go out and buy a Chick-fil-A.
Right.
You start off as a working GM.
Yep.
And they call you an owner-operator. Whether or not it's actual ownership, that's a whole other deal. But yeah.
Tony Levine, former U of H head football coach, owns the one I think out in Missouri City, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Tank's working the one in Rosenberg yesterday. The pictures are great. You got the manager in there showing him how to work the touch screen, taking orders. Can you imagine going into Chick-fil-A and you walk in there and Tank Dell's taking your order? Tank Dell would fit in perfect there in terms of his demeanor. They're the nicest people on the planet there at Chick-fil-A.
You know, Darryl Talley was working at McDonald's while he was playing because he was in a program to become an owner. So in the offseason, he would work at McDonald's.
Oh, the Bills linebacker. Yeah.
And he used to run into that sometimes. I think he was still doing it after he retired. And there were a lot of people that thought, like, oh, poor Darryl Talley. Like, oh, he must not have saved any of his money. He's working the register at McDonald's.
There were probably at least a few people that may have thought that about Tank yesterday.
They've probably given Darryl Talley tips. They're probably like, slip him a 20, honey. I feel bad. I love that guy, man. He's down bad.
Yeah. Loved you in Super Bowl 25, bro. I loved you there. All right, Payne and Pendergast.